Welcome, everyone, to our Wednesday edition of our Packers News live chat alongside Ryan Wood. I'm Olivia Reiner. The Pack is back from their bye week, and they're getting ready for their game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll bring you the latest on keys to getting back and starting off strong coming off of the bye, and we'll also take a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass rush in just a moment. However, as always, before we begin, I want to remind you, if you're over on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, we want you to be a part of our conversation. Leave us a question or a comment down in the chat. Ryan and I will get to some of those in just a moment. The Packers don't get to pick their bye week. None of the teams in the NFL do. The NFL overlords bless them with a week 5 bye, the earliest possible bye week that they could have. However, the bye week came at a pretty good time for the Packers. It allowed players like wide receiver Davante Adams and defensive lineman Kenny Clark to recover from their hamstring and groin injuries, respectively. Both of them practiced in a full capacity today for the first time in weeks. However, the Packers have not been very successful coming off the bye in recent years. Over the last 3 seasons, they've lost the game immediately following the bye. Ryan, how did the Packers continue their 2020 momentum and avoid the bye week slump against the Bucs?
Yeah, that's a heck of a stat. First of all, I didn't realize that. Secondly, I don't think this Packers team has much in common with even last year. Even last year, that was 13-3, but they were just they didn't look the same, right? This team has looked different. Certainly, the 2 years before last season, it's just not much in common. So I see it as a completely different situation, completely different team, and we'll see. This is the toughest test that they've had so far this season, and not just because it's Tom Brady on the other side either. That defense that the Bucs have. With Todd Bowles pulling the strings, it's much more ferocious than anything that they faced in the first 4 games. There's some injuries on that side of the ball. Levante David was limited today in practice, and they don't have Vita Vea. But with that said, this is a better team than they've faced. Still, the Packers, if they play like they did the first 4 games, there's not a team in the league they can't beat.
The bye week didn't heal everyone on the Packers. Cornerback Kevin King missed today's practice after sustaining a quad injury against the Falcons. However, injuries are unfortunate, Ryan, regardless, no matter who it's to. However, they're especially unfortunate when the injury involves Kevin King, the team's tallest receiver at 6'3", when the Packers are going up against 6'5" wide receiver Mike Evans and the Bucs, one of the tallest receivers in the NFL. If King is unable to go on Sunday, how do the Packers go about replacing him?
Yeah, Kevin King's the corner that gets that big receiver matchup, and so it'll be interesting to see. This could be Josh Jackson's week, and certainly if there's anything that we've seen, Olivia, in terms of trends in this early season with how the Packers medical staff is approaching soft tissue muscle injuries, is that you don't play if you don't practice, and you don't play in the week that you come back from practice, right? It takes time to get guys on the field, and there's a reason why they're doing that. This season, more than any other, is a war of attrition because they didn't have a regular offseason. They had a truncated training camp, and this is a team of the Packers. We just talked about it. They've looked so good. They've got bigger aspirations ahead of them, right? They're going to be playing for they hope for a championship down the line. They want all their pieces together for that stretch run. So it's very, very plausible, if not likely, that Kevin King won't be able to go this week because of that quadricep. Then they're going to have, just like Davante Adams, Kenny Clark, they're going to have him be very deliberate in his return to the field. So, yeah, Josh Jackson's a name. I think we're going to figure out this week what the Packers think of Josh Jackson. If he's he's that big-bodied corner, just like Kevin King. If he's the guy that goes off the sideline to replace him, that's what you want him to be able to do at this point. You want him to provide that kind of depth. If not, they'll have to move some more pieces around.
Another position that's faced some injury early in the season for the Packers is the offensive line. On one hand, there was right guard Lane Taylor, who is now out for the season after sustaining a knee injury in week 1. There was also right tackle Billy Turner, who missed the first 2 games of the season also with a knee injury. However, Turner has returned and he's played the last 2 games. He's looked almost statistically flawless. He hasn't given up a single sack nor a quarterback pressure of any kind. He is likely going up against outside linebacker Shaquille Barrett against the Bucs this weekend. Barrett led the league in sacks back in 2019. This season, he already has 3. What are some of the challenges that Barrett is going to present Turner?
Well, it's athleticism on athleticism. Billy Turner's got that great athleticism that he was able to kick out from guard to right tackle and has played quite well. Shaq Barrett he's the same type of guy, very athletic, very explosive edge rusher, and that's what it's going to be. I mean, it's strength on strength, and so certainly it's going to be interesting to see how that matches up.
The offensive line as a whole has been giving quarterback Aaron Rodgers all of the time in the universe to get the ball out. Rodgers has only taken 3 sacks through all 4 games this season. However, Tampa Bay, right now, they rank 5th in the league in sack percentage. Even safeties like Antoine Winfield and Jordan Whitehead have 2 sacks apiece. It's iron against iron, Ryan. Who comes out on top?
That's what's going to be so intriguing about this week is, I mean, you got a Packers offense that's dropping 40 points on most opponents. They don't have Devontae Adams. They go 37, 30 points. This is a much better defense than they've seen through the first 4 games. So, Rodgers Brady has the headline this week, and rightly so. You got 2 first ballot Hall of Famer quarterbacks going against each other. But it's really, Aaron Rodgers has been quick to say this, he's not playing Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not playing Aaron Rodgers. And that's right. It's cliche, but the reality is it's Aaron Rodgers versus that Bucs defense. And I think that this time next week, we're going to have a much better sense of just how good and potentially great this Packers offense is, especially when they're getting all their pieces back. Devontae Adams, a full participant today and in practice. He's ready to go. So this is going to be not just the Packers offense against that Bucs defense, but the full complement, the full array of this Packers offense against the best defense they've seen so far. And if they're able to go out there and do what they've done the first 4 games, you're talking about a bona fide, legit, one of, if not the best offense in the NFL.
Left tackle David Bakhtiari called this upcoming weekend's matchup the Green Bay Rodgers versus the Tampa Bay Bradys. He also rolled his eyes into the back of his head, so I think he may have been kidding there. Not exactly a matchup between the 2 quarterbacks, however, still for fans, an exciting matchup nonetheless. Let's move over to Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. If you have your question and you haven't asked it over in the chat just yet, it's not too late. Leave it down there. Ryan and I want to hear what you have to say. This is your show too. It's not just about the 2 of us. Let's start with Matthew. Matthew asks, do you think running back Aaron Jones will eat the field and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Aaron Jones is good at what he does. He's good at scoring touchdowns. He's good at running out of the backfield. He's good at lining up as a wide receiver and catching the ball from the line of scrimmage. However, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also pretty good at stopping the run. They're one of the best in the league, and no team so far this season has run for over 100 rushing yards against them. How are the Bucs going to treat Aaron Jones?
If it's anything like the last couple opponents, it's going to be geared defensively to taking Aaron Jones away. And this is a Packers offense, if we've learned anything through the first month of the season, that is not going to force feed whatever the opposing defense is trying to stop, because there's multiple ways that this Packers offense can beat you. If they load the box against Aaron Jones, big week for Devontae Adams, maybe Robert Tonyan, maybe Marquez Valdez-Scantling is his turn. Each of the first 4 games, it's been someone else. It hasn't been MVS yet. Maybe this is his week. If they play double coverage on Devontae Adams the entire time because he's likely to return, then you got 1 fewer defender in the box, and maybe this is another big week for Aaron Jones. So that's what's so difficult about defending this offense, is that there's so many different ways that they can go about it, and they've shown it in so many different ways. It all starts from those bunch formations and those pre-snap motions and a quarterback that's on schedule and getting rid of the ball really well, right? But there's so many different ways and avenues that they can go from there, and we've seen almost everything.
Thank you, Matthew, for your question. Let's move on here to Nolan. Nolan asks, when will the Packers welcome back rookie linebacker Kamal Martin, who has been on injured reserve since the very beginning of the season? Martin returned to practice just on Monday. So did wide receiver Equinemius St. Brown, who is also on injured reserve. It's awfully convenient that Kamal Martin is getting healthier and he's getting closer to returning just about almost at the same time that inside linebacker Christian Kirksey was placed on injured reserve with a pectoral injury. How soon can Packers fans expect to see Kamal Martin back?
Well, if trends are what they are, I wouldn't think this week for him or Equinemius St. Brown. They want to see a week of practice and then get him on the field. They have a 3-week window here where they can have him reactivated to the 53. I think they're going to take their time with that. But you are right, Olivia. I mean, they've gotten something of a revelation with Chris Barnes, the undrafted rookie. He's played awfully well. Ty Summers has been okay, but there's still not a lot of depth there, and they certainly need another body. And if Kamal Martin can pick up where he left off in training camp, which is a big if because he is a young player, and missing time as a young player is never great for development. It's always a hurdle to get over. It's adversity. It's something that you have to adapt to and knock off that rust, even more than if you're a veteran. But if he is able to pick up where he left off in training camp, he'll be more than another body on the second level. He's a guy that will get snaps and you would expect to play quite well because he really did have a good camp.
Thanks, Nolan, for your question. Let's turn it over to Roland, who asks perhaps the most fundamental question of this week for the Green Bay Packers. How do the Packers stop Tom Brady and company of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Ryan, when you look at what Tom Brady has put on tape in 2020 in a new offense under head coach Bruce Arians down in Tampa, he has some games looked really strong, like his game against the Chargers, where he threw 5 touchdowns and had a 117 passer rating. And then there were games like the game against the Chicago Bears where he didn't look exactly like he did against the Chargers. It was a little bit more of a struggle for him. I told Jim Ozarski in our show just the other week, one of our other reporters, if you're a regular on the show, he didn't look a whole lot better than Bears quarterback Nick Foles. Which Tom Brady are the Packers preparing for on Sunday?
Ticked off Tom Brady, because how many times in Tom Brady's career has he actually faced scrutiny and criticism? And, oh, by the way, he forgot how many downs there were in a game-winning or game-losing situation, right? You've got to imagine that Tom Brady is going to be itching to get back on the field, because not only did he forget the downs, he also had an extra few days with that Thursday night game last week to ponder it and to sit on that. So we'll see. When you look at the film, there seems to be more there, even at 43, than what Drew Brees has at his age, right? That Tom Brady has had some pretty big moments. He's had some moments that were less than big. Either way, this is not a guy that they can afford to overlook, and he will be a guy that's extra motivated and frankly ticked off this week and ready to get back out there. So, I think the Packers are expecting a Tom Brady that's got something to prove, and that's always dangerous. Think about when Aaron Rodgers has something to prove, how dangerous he is. It's no different with Tom Brady.
Thank you, Roland, for your question. Let's go back to something that we were talking about early in our show with Kevin King dealing with the quad injury, who might replace him, perhaps someone like Josh Jackson, if King isn't able to go on Sunday. Jordan, our good friend over on Facebook, asks us, we know that cornerback Josh Jackson has a history of holding and he hasn't had a lot of snaps. How do the Packers help him get in the flow of the game? What will be the biggest challenge for Josh Jackson to overcome if he is called upon to start on Sunday?
Well, if it's Mike Evans, you would think that maybe Jair Alexander just takes the bigger receiver. But if they want to go big on big, then it would be Mike Evans. That would be the challenge itself. However, you're right. It's the history of holding. It's learning how to play in this league. And it's like Jerry Gray said back in training camp, adding finesse to his game. Josh Jackson's strength is his strength, his long arms, his ability to get leverage at the line of scrimmage. If Josh Jackson jams you at the line of scrimmage, he can beat any receiver. I mean, he can get guys out of the routes, disrupt the timing before the play really gets a chance to begin. But if he doesn't do that, that's when he's gotten in trouble in the past. And he does get awfully handsy, especially at the top of routes. And so that's going to be the obstacle for him to overcome. And, I mean, if this is his week, it'd be very fascinating to see him get through a game and where he's at this point in his career.
Thank you, Jordan, for your question. Let's move over to Ryan. Ryan asks, which defensive tackle is going to take a lesser role with the return of defensive lineman Kenny Clark and the emergence of defensive lineman Kingsley Keke? We don't know if Kenny Clark is going to be active for the game this upcoming weekend. However, he's probably getting closer. Yes, he was a full participant in practice today, which is the first time he's been a full participant in at least 2 weeks, possibly more. Ryan, I have the snap counts up from the game against the Falcons. Dean Lowry played 61% of the snaps. Tyler Lancaster played 50%, and Kingsley Keke also played 50%. When Kenny Clark gets back in there, how are those snaps going to be redistributed?
Well, it'll be roles. Kingsley Keke and Tyler Lancaster are entirely – they might have played 50-50, but they're entirely different linemen. Tyler Lancaster is your early down run stopper, and Kingsley Keke has shown some pass rush. And it was Kenny Clark that said that Kingsley Keke's got the athleticism. He's needed the power in his game, and that's something he showed in those couple of sacks he had against Drew Brees in week 3. So – it's going to be situational. It's going to be what roles they have more than how many snaps. So what do they need? What kind of skill set do they need on the field, given the down and the distance and what situation it is? So Dean Lowry is still that second fiddle to Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark it's a big gap between him and everyone else on that defensive line. But if they need a pass rusher, Kingsley Keke is probably the guy. If they need that run defense, you're looking at Dean Lowry. You're looking at Tyler Lancaster. So it's all situational.
Let's talk about the defense as a whole as John brings this question up. Can the defense rise to the level of the offense? Does it need for them to rise? Do the defense need to improve in order to win the whole thing? The offense has been playing at a very impressive level. Going into the bye week, they were top in the league in points, second in yards. In both of those categories for the defense, they were somewhere around the middle. How important is it for the defense to rise to the level of play that the offense is at in order for them to go all the way?
Not if the offense keeps playing like this, and they're going to outscore most of the teams they play. What they need if the offense does keep scoring like this is a defense that's competent, right? A defense that is not what they were in 2011. The last time the Packers had an offense like this and the defense couldn't hold the water. They needed a defense that can hold the water. This defense has been able to do that. It played awfully well against the Falcons. They had Matt Ryan, Todd Gurley. I know Julio Jones left midway through the game, but they took Calvin Ridley completely out. That was a good performance for this defense. If they're able to be league average, and this offense stays what it is, this is a team that could win the Super Bowl. With that said, along that path, you're likely to see the offense have an off game. And at that point, the question is, when that happens, can the defense emerge then? So overall, big picture, average defense with this kind of offense, it's a Super Bowl contender. You need a defense that is capable of owning the day if needed. And it'll probably be rare with the Smiths, with Jair Alexander, with the back end, what they've got a lot of playmakers on this defense. It's a very different picture than 2011.
The defense is also somewhat of a different picture, too, from 2019, at least through the first several games. We've got Steve here. Steve asks, why is the defense not forcing as many turnovers this year as they did last year? Through 4 games last season, Ryan, I believe the defense forced about 8 turnovers. This season, they've only forced like 3. What is the big difference?
Yeah, it's not just turnovers, Steve. It's also red zone defense. They were so good in the red zone last year. One top 5, I think, in touchdown percentage. This year has not been that way. Those are situational parts of the game that are difficult to replicate year over year. It's usually like this when you go to the situational aspects of the game, offense and defense for that matter. And this was a defense that really it gave up a lot of yards last year. It wasn't great in between the 20s. It got sacks, it got turnovers, and it stiffened inside the 20. it's only been 4 games. I'm curious to see the sample size as it stretches out to see if it mirrors what they did last year more. I imagine it might, but the reality is year over year, the situational aspects of the game like that, it's difficult to replicate.
Thanks so much, Steve, for your question. That is going to do it for us tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you did not get your question into us or we didn't answer it, don't worry. Ryan and I or someone else and I will be back tomorrow to take your questions once again. We'll see you next time.